Hey, how y'all doing? This is Sun 919 True Sports with another segment. This segment, I'm going to go over and talk about the things that I felt that Kavosiey Smoke meant with the Twitter release that he did. I'll leave it, you can just pause the screen and check it out. You can read that for yourself. But one of the main things he talked about was selfish ball. And I understand exactly I think I know exactly what he's saying. I'm saying I think because I'm not him. I'm not in his brain. But I'm going to give you 10 things on what I think selfish ball is. And I also want you to take into account, Cormani also said some things early in the season when he said behind the scenes politics. And I knew what he meant by that as well. And I kind of spoke on it a little bit in one of my other segments that I did on him. So I'm gonna give you some things I want you to think about, and I want you to understand this. I am a Coach Primes supporter. I am a Deion Jr. supporter. Well Off Media. That's actually what really got me into this. Was watching how he was doing things and the behind the scenes things that I like. And I want Coach Prime to do well. I have watched every single game that came on television from beginning to end. I don't care how early it was or how late it was. I watched it, and I was hoping he would have a great season because I truly want him to do well, especially a black coach. And I just want him to do well. But at the same time, I cannot ignore what I'm seeing. I cannot ignore some of the things that bothers me that other programs do. He wants you to come to his program because you look like him. He's from the same place you're from, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, he's still doing things that other organizations or other teams do. It's kind of like the Puff Daddy effect when Puff Daddy first started his company back in the 90s. One of the reasons you could go to him was because, all the white companies were so-called screwing you. So if you went to an all-black company, which is never really all-black because they don't run the whole thing, you think you would get all the money you're supposed to get. You'd be treated fairly. You'd be taught how to take care of your money, how to get your royalties, your publishing, et cetera, et cetera. But then come to find out, Puffy was robbing people just like the white companies were. So that's the same type of effect to a certain level. But I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to name 10 things that I think he meant when he says selfish ball. Some things are on the field. Some things are off the field. You don't have to agree with them. It's just, it's just my thoughts. That's why we all have our own pages. It's just my thoughts on and from my experience. It's nothing that I'm making up. It's from my experiences of being in locker rooms throughout my whole life, whether I was playing or coaching, being around other players and knowing how we all talk when the coach is not around, how we do talk when the coach is around, how we talk in the locker room and outside of the locker room. So please take account to some of these things that I'm going to bring up. What I think when he said selfish ball. And remember, Smoke was one of these guys that he called a dog before he got there. Smoke came from the SEC, and Smoke, when he got an opportunity, he played well from everything that I was able to find. I know it looked like he dealt with some injuries, but a lot of football players deal with injuries, which is why I respect him. But that's a whole nother story. But I'm gonna get right into it. One of the first things that I think he meant when he says selfish ball was Shador gets to basically pass at will, and at the end of the day is padding his stats at the expense of the team. And those are true facts. I remember when other people were saying that at the beginning of the season, I did not want to believe it, but as I've watched, that is what my eyes see. I don't care how bad the line is playing, they're passing. I don't care how hurt he is, they're passing. I don't care if the kid can barely walk, they're passing. The other night when they played Washington State, they were running the ball effectively. Run, maybe pass. Run, maybe pass. He gets hurt, he goes out, he comes back in. It's like 6 straight passes. And now it's like, he was clearly hurt. He could even in the start of the game, he looked clearly hurt. And they just kept passing and passing and passing. So that's one thing I think can be looked at as being selfish. Passing to predominantly or basically 1 to 2 targets. We know his main target that he wants to be because he claims he's so comfortable is with Travis. So Travis is an extended son of Coach Deion. That's not my words. That's what Coach Deion said. So that's another extended son. Might as well call him a Sanders. He's basically their main target. The second target, of course, is Xavier Weaver, but I don't, because he can get open, but mostly he wants to throw to Travis. Travis normally gets the most targets, especially when you look at the amount of times that he was actually in as receiver. It seems like as soon as he comes in, that's who Shador is looking for. That can be considered a little bit selfish, even though Travis is good, but you have to look beyond him being good. Those other players are good too. The difference with Travis is he gets the opportunity. Okay, those are just facts. Are there other Travises out there? Yes, they just don't get the opportunity. Travis is not the only athlete in the world that came out of high school that can play both ways. It's a lot of those kids that can play both ways. But to get Travis to come to to Jackson State, I'm sure he had to make that promise to him and keep it. And so I have to give Deion that credit. He's keeping that promise, but it is at the detriment of the other kids because Colorado has proven they have legit wide receivers from 1 through 9. How many they have legit receivers who can catch and make something happen. Let me get right back to it. Like I said, 2 is basically passing to 1 to 2 receivers, mostly Travis Hunter. Number 3 is let Shador get beat up multiple times for multiple games to the point that he led the league in sacks and hits. Okay, so he's getting beat up, yet he's still getting his stats. That's selfish to me. He's clearly getting hit too much. He's clearly taking too many sacks. You should have either really told the running backs coach, we need to run the ball more. Even if we're not getting any yards, just protect my son, protect the quarterback from getting hit. But no, regardless of how much he got hit, how much he showed it, whether he could barely run, walk, barely throw it, they put him in there to keep passing the passes stats. And he was, for a while, one of the top passer in the nation. But at what cost? That's my question. Number 4, I thought was very selfish, was Coach Prime flipping Dylan Edwards from Notre Dame to Colorado and not having a plan for him. That's not out of my mouth. Coach Prime just said it at his last at his last press conference. We have to have a plan for Dylan, and I'm thinking, you coming up on the last game of the season, and you don't have a plan for Dylan and his speed. That kind of caught me off guard. But then again, I know what I saw, and they didn't have a plan for him. So you flip a kid from a great school like Notre Dame. Notre Dame have big backs, which tells me Notre Dame probably had a weight plan for him to have him ready, and probably in another year or so to be a featured running back with the speed, and he will have a little bit more size. But Coach Prime, brought him to Colorado because of their relationship, and all for nothing. To be honest with you, I don't even think the kid has 500 yards for the season. I have to check the stats. So flipping Edwards, I thought without a plan was very selfish. The demotion of Coach Kelly with no real change in the offense was selfish too, because this is also his first year. Deion, you're struggling as a coach. We may have thought that Coach Kelly was struggling, but at the end of the day, his offense did have stats that led the nation for a while, whether we like it or not. There was also number 1 in the red zone scoring for a while. So whether we liked him or not, his offense was effectively, at least nationwide, to a certain point. It has some down parts, but it definitely has some good parts. And then you demote him, yet you keep him, you demote him. And then the play caller that's coming in for him, the new play caller, which Sherm, I think is his name, he wasn't bad, but it wasn't no big difference either. So I thought that was very selfish, because he's obviously new to the to having these new players as well, just like you are. Another thing I think was very selfish was having Smoke and the rest of those running backs to come to that school and be a complete non-factor. They were a non-factor, and you told all these kids they were dogs. Some of those kids were all conference where they came from, 1,000-yard runners. Some of those kids had great reputations for being running backs. You brought all of those running backs there knowing you couldn't play them all. In basketball, you don't want to bring in 10 legit All-Americans. That won't work. As Kentucky, they always try, and those kids always end up transferring. So you cannot tell all these kids they're going to play when you know mathematically they cannot get into the games and play and be productive like they can be and like they want to be. So I think that's very selfish of what they did to that running back room. And I know I'm not the only one seeing it. Number 7, having Travis to take the snaps from other good receivers. Is Travis good? Yes. Is he good because he has great attributes? He's good because he gets the opportunity to be a receiver. It's not like he has break wind speed and he's going to catch a lot of downfield passes. He's a very good receiver. He can play the ball very well, and I am a fan of his. But do you really need him to that level? Is he giving you production that those other kids can't give you, that Horn can't give you? No, he isn't. Those other kids, when he was out, they all stepped up and they all had big games. When he comes back, they went right back to being non-existent. So you push him to be a superstar, that's what he's going to be, but it was also at the detriment of the team. Selfish to me, number 9, is having all those kids that come to your school and not have a plan for most of them, and you're not ready to coach them. You can't always out talent people. At Jackson State, you was able to out talent. You didn't have to out coach anybody. We got out coached in the Celebration Bowl both years, but you just can't over recruit in a Power 5 school. They're going to all have good recruits. They're going to all be ranked top in the nation. And I think you got all those kids there, and you were not ready to coach them. You just thought they was going to come in, use their talent, take over, win you some games, and make you look good. No, you have to be ready to coach them and direct them, and I don't think they got that this year. I do think they'll get it next year because this is a year to learn. I think you're going to have to let some people go, some of your friends go, get different legit coaches in there, and then you'll be right back there at the top. That's just how I look at it. Number 10 was a Sanders overload. What do I mean by Sanders overload? I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this respectfully. Okay, I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. Actually, I'm a fan more of Deion Jr. than I was Coach Prime at first, because I really got to like with Well Off Media, the work they were doing behind the scenes. I'm a behind the scenes person. I just love that stuff. So let me tell you what I mean by Sanders overload. Sanders overload is this. You have Coach Sanders as your head coach. You have a Sanders as your quarterback. You have a Sanders that's running the camera, okay? Then you have a Sanders, think about this, on top of all of that, you have an extended Sanders at the wide receiver position who's his main target, or he likes to be his main target. Then on top of all that, you got 2 Sanders that you have to listen to through the speakers. Coach Deion Jr.'s song is always played throughout the speakers, when they're in their arena and on the bus, and the QB Shador's rapping is always played. So I know as an ex-player, at first it's all cool, right? But when you're not playing, when you're not one of the guys who are getting into the game, when you're not happy for whatever reason, and sometimes even if you're a good friend and you are starting and you're a great player just as well, you do, just like you get tired of hearing coaches talk all the time, you get tired of hearing that over and over and over, and eventually you got to be like, man, this is a Sanders overload. Can we chill out a little bit, guys? Do we have to hear y'all rap music? Even though I love your music, do we have to hear that all day? Do we have to see Sanders, in our face all day with the cameras all day, every day? So eventually, y'all, everybody's human. That stuff can really affect you. So you got to think about things like that. A lot of you all won't understand that you're going to fight against what I'm saying. You're going to get mad, and that's fine. But I promise you, there are some players and there are some coaches that know exactly what I'm talking about. And I actually think there are some players on that team now who feel how I feel. Because if you notice Well Off Media, they cover the same people and the same trainers. It's not like you getting to know everybody. Now, I don't really know anybody outside of what they normally show on Well Off. He has not moved around the whole team, and we hadn't gotten a chance to know the whole team, and I wonder why that is. So that was number 10, and the extra point I want to make that I think is selfish, because it's a good recruiting tool, but it's not a realistic tool. Stop talking pro. Stop labeling guys as pros. This guy's a pro. This guy's a pro, and blah, blah, blah. This guy want to help his mom. He want to help his mom because she's been working hard all these years. Stop telling kids that, okay? You have no control over that to a certain extent. The pros is its own entity. Those owners have their own minds, and they know who they want to spend their money on and what they want to spend their money on. If your pros is in your story, let it be your story. Just go through the process, and if you're supposed to be there, you'll get there. But stop telling kids that, because a lot of them, we know that won't happen for them. Some of them may get drafted in the late rounds, not knowing you still have to make the team. So a lot of them will run off, and you'll see them on the NFL team. But if you don't follow them, or if you do follow them, you see that they got cut weeks later, because you have to make that 52-man roster. If I'm not mistaken, it's 52. So those are some of the things I think that he thought Smokes when he said that things were, it was called selfish ball. These are some of the things I think were very selfish. It's things that what I saw, maybe he didn't see them, but this is what I saw. And I took the opportunity, of course, when you have a YouTube page to create content. When I saw that led me into some of the things that I've been thinking anyway. So it's been Hunt 919, Truth Sports. Ride with me.